I'd like to call the meeting to order. Roll call.
Mr. Updegrove.
Here.
Mr. Brophy.
Here.
Ms. Nyman.
Here.
Ms. Deeroff.
Here.
Mrs. Scott.
Here.
Ms. Hogan.
Present.
Mr. Zawada. Mr. Hemingway.
Here.
Mr. Panarello.
Here.
All present.
Let's rise for a pledge of allegiance. Known as silence.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll meet for the executive session meeting following September 12, 2023 meeting at the top of the personnel.
Mrs. Moore?
Mr. Rowe's going to turn the lights off so everyone can see.
Thank you, Mrs. Moyer, for putting that together. Our school board has done a lot of great work over the past years, and thank you to the present board members and past board members for putting these resolutions in place to where we do celebrate, our kiddos and try to encourage those to support, our children with cancer, and especially, Pediatric Childhood Cancer Awareness Month. We do a lot throughout the school district. There's a lot of fundraisers. There's a lot of dress down days. We try to make an impact on this group of individuals. So thank you, Mrs. Moyer, for putting that together. Along with Childhood or Pediatric Cancer Awareness Month, yesterday, as you all know, was September 11th, and we have a resolution, a day to remember. And I wanted to just comment that on November 13th, 2018, the Boyertown Area School District Board of Directors approved the resolution, a day to remember. It was resolved that this resolution be publicized for all to see and know that the Boyertown Area School District remember with eternal respect those whose lives were suddenly, without cause, and pointlessly taken from them on September 11th. The promotion of peace, service, and goodwill, the demonstration of the Boyertown Area School District's resolve and perseverance that we are a school district which promotes no place for hatred, the advancement of responsible citizenship, the encouragement of patriotism, love of country, school district, and the poignant remembrance of those innocent victims who died September 11th, 2001 as heroes one and all. Just to let you know that throughout our school district, in all of our schools, we had different ceremonies taking place, different ways that we were acknowledging and being respectful of Patriot Day. So just wanted to bring that to everyone's attention. At this time, I'm going to hand it back over to Mrs. Hogan.
I just have a quick comment, which I appreciate the Day to Remember resolution and the Childhood Cancer Awareness Month. I would just ask people to remember all the heroes from 9/11 who continue to fight through various cancers and health issues related to their service to the city of New York City in the time that followed the collapse of the towers. So that's all I had to say. Thank you.
We can pass it right over to you for a BCIU update if you have one.
I actually do not have an update tonight, but thank you.
At the BCU meeting on this past Wednesday, it was basically all about staffing. So that's all I have to report, is staffing, filling positions. That's what I have.
Next, Ms. DeNicola and the audit presentation.
Our auditors will be joining us via Zoom. There will be nothing on the agenda tonight that won't need to be voted on, but they're going to give you a brief overview of the financial statements. Mr. Stout, you're going to connect the Zoom?
Yeah, he's there. It's just a Yeah, I don't know if you can hear us, but you are on the Zoom and you are muted.
I apologize that the stream isn't quite working, so I was using the YouTube stream, so I think I'm a little delayed, but hopefully someone wave if I'm not supposed to be talking. But thank you for having me on tonight. I'm delighted to be calling in from Minnesota today to present the results of your audit for the year ended June 30, 2022. We performed your audit starting late in the fall through the winter, issuing our report our report is dated in March. It was issued shortly after that on the financial statements, and I'm pleased to let you know that based on our testing of major transactions as well as the internal control processes of the district, we found the financial statements to be fairly presented. Additionally, we performed federal single audit compliance testing on your special education IDEA cluster, as well as on the ESSER program, including ARP ESSER. And we issued unmodified clean opinions on compliance with the major federal programs. Our testing did not identify any material weaknesses, significant deficiencies, or other matters to report to the board. During the year, one of the big things that the district evaluated was whether or not the district was required to implement GASB, it was the Government Accounting Standards Board Statement number 87, which was the standard on leases. We evaluated and determined that there were no material leases required to be adopted under that standard. This year, the next big thing will be looking at subscription-based IT arrangements, which are going to be similarly to leases, capitalized in the future. So in future financial statements, you will see a asset and related subscription liability for any subscription-based IT arrangements that last longer than 1 year. It will have an asset and a liability, so the impact on your bottom line should not be significant. And I also do want to highlight that this will be on your entity-wide financial statements, so it won't impact your general fund budgetary basis statements. At this point, I'm going to try to mute this and unmute the YouTube stream so that I can hear any questions. Actually, I think I'm unmuted, so if anybody has any questions, I would be happy to address them.
The statements were also provided to the board members. If you guys have questions in the meantime, you can feel free to email and we will answer any questions before the next board meeting. Additionally, we have already scheduled with the auditors the audit for the year ended June 30th, 2023. Our goal is to have those statements completed by the beginning of December.
So there's no outstanding audit issues at the present time or in the rest of this calendar year?
Nope.
That is correct. There are no outstanding audit issues at the present time.
As there are no additional questions regarding the audit presentation, we will move on to the turf field feasibility study update. Mr. Shield will provide an update to the board.
Good evening. After the last board meeting, we're directed to look into providing prices for a feasibility study. We reached out to ICS, Dewey, and KCBA for pricing for having Memorial Field, Field 1, and Field 2 converted for turf. So that way there's some options for the board on which direction they want to go. KCBA came in at no cost to the district since they worked on this during the ATTMP project. They are willing to come in and give us the feasibility study at no cost to us. So that the Dewey was $1,500 and ICS was $8,580. So it's our recommendation that the facility department's recommendation to go with KCBA since there's no money needing to be spent. Any questions?
Choosing KCBA to do the feasibility study does not mean that we would be forced to use KCBA for the project should the board choose to go that direction. They have provided services to the district for many, many years, so they were confident that they would be able to quickly turn around a feasibility study at no cost. But it does not tie us to a future engagement with them.
I just want to say I did follow up with House Representative Ms. Sharon. Naturally, they just went back, so she's swamped. But she's hoping to get back to me where we can set up an appointment in the next 2 weeks to see what's out there possibly from the state.
Is KCBA the same one that we had to mess with the tennis courts that they're flooding all the time and we got to use a blower to get them clean so we can use them after rain?
I do not know if they were involved with that. Was that part of the ATTMP project? That was before me.
Well, we just better be, when somebody gives you something for nothing, you just have to be careful what you do.
Which fields are we talking now?
We're talking Memorial Stadium, and then if you go out the road past Bear Stadium, the first field and the second field right there.
So we're now at 3 fields for turf.
That was for you guys to figure out which would be the best direction to go. Not that we're looking to do all 3. That's giving you the options if one's too expensive and you want to do a different one.
Okay.
Yeah, those were the original 3 that were done during the ATAMP project, and there was no direction on how many fields you guys wanted to do, so I wanted to make sure that we gave you as many options as you wanted.
Those, and I know this, Memorial Field's okay. The other 2 fields, are they landlocked in any way where we have to go through other fields to get to them?
The first field's along the road, the second one is landlocked.
Okay, so we would then have to include repairs to whatever we dig up.
Yeah. There is a dirt road that goes back towards that you could get.
Because you realize this will be a construction area. You're not going to leave everything pristine as you go to get just to what you want to if you're landlocked. Okay.
Each of these will be priced out separately,
Yes, they should be line item out.
and it's whatever water lines we have there is going to be
Yes.
looked into also.
Yes,
So
we're going to
remember,
go.
we put water lines in there to water the field.
Correct. We
So
talked about
now we're
that.
going to be probably destroying that. Okay.
That'll all be figured in, stormwater, all the any
Okay.
kind of geo work we have to do, all that's included.
Thank you.
Scott, those fields, are they going to be designated as a football field only? Or are
Those
you
are-
going to have these fields made up so you can play multiple different sports on them?
That's going to be decisions for the board to make. That's part of the proposal is that they will meet with stakeholders and members of the district to determine how and what you want to use these fields for.
Because there is a big cost difference between when you start adding the different sports to one field.
Yeah. And that's all part of the process.
In that study, they're going to also look at environmental impact requirements
Yes, and
for the
contact
EPA?
the Berks County Conservatory and the EPA and DEP to see what
Okay,
needs to be done.
Federal, state, everything.
That's what they're stating, yes.
Okay, because especially runoff.
Yeah, for stormwater runoff. Yeah.
And this will include the cost of, after 8 years or 10 years, having it ripped out and redo it and disposing of the material that's in there?
I am not sure. I will look into that because I did not look
Because
for a
that's
future
very
study.
important also, I think.
Yeah.
From what I'm reading, I would like to know that also. Thank you.
Okay, I'll reach out to them and see if that would be included.
Well, some fields could last 15 years though, isn't that correct? Not all fields are done in 8 years, correct?
Yeah, I guess it depends on the
Yeah,
usage and
depends on the
hours.
field, yeah.
From what I'm understanding is how you use them and how often you use them.
I would have to, if you're going to make an assumption or estimation, you don't go on the longest possible time, you go on the average time, which would be 8 years. Per everything I have read and looked at, it's 8 years, 10 years max. That's probably if you're hardly using it. Also, if you're going to be putting this in, you're going to also, I would think, put a fence around those fields. So the cost of the fence also has to be included in that.
Yeah, fencing, any kind of lighting, stadium, that's all things we can
That's
determine.
all got to be part of it.
Yeah, it's all got to be discussions.
I can tell you there's schools out there that when they put it in, they also had to put in storage tanks for runoff because of the chemical runoff in there. So I would make sure that that's not part of the issue we're going to have here. I don't know if it is or I don't know if it isn't. I'm just telling you there's some out there that have that.
Right.
I think it also takes special equipment to maintain it. If we could get the price of everything.
Yeah, I'll look into that. Some of the companies I reached out to said that the groomer's included with the purchase of the turf. Some will include that with it, some don't. So that would be a
Just-
cost we'd have to find out. And
Yeah,
add
just
in.
so they give us everything.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I don't know. I will definitely ask and find out.
And none of your people now are knowledgeable on how to maintain it. So we probably have to hire somebody else to maintain the field.
There's no one on my staff that I know is trained
So we
in
need to
turf.
look at that also. That has to be incorporated into the whole thing.
So as far as the materials, I know there's good, there's better, there's best. Will they have that kind of, or they just gonna tell you what they're gonna use? And just from my reading, I've seen different things, so they'll let you know what they're.
In their proposal, they claim that they will look at different kinds of fill and turf.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Tonight, we are going to present to you our short presentation with respect to the 84-page comprehensive plan document. I would like to put out a thank you to all the people that were included in this process. If you remember, we started back in fall. And back in December, in fact, you'll see the presentation, and I think Mr. Brophy, you are listed as board president. We kept the original team names there when we started, but it got extended. So here we are 6 to 7 months later with the presentation that goes before you tonight. And again, thank you to all the people that have been involved in the process. Dr. Obaro, who is no longer with us, certainly was a key person in working through this document. So I just need to put a little thank you out to her for tonight as well. So I'm going to bring up the new Dr. Obaro, Mrs. Stephanie Landis, and she is going to go through the presentation. And if you are able to hold your questions until the end, that would be great. If you feel compelled to ask something along the way, we will certainly stop and answer your question. Let me go project it.
Good evening. We're going to take a few moments to go through the overview of what the process looked like as we put together this plan, as well as to give you some of the highlights of what we actually worked on throughout this process. So as Mr. Stout said, this process really started early last year. Our team met several times throughout the 22-23 school year. So I'm going to share several items with you in terms of that planning process. And then there are 3 key pieces to the plan itself. We have the overall comprehensive plan, and then we also have to submit to the state the professional learning plan and the induction plan, which are 2 separate pieces of that are referenced in the main part as well. Here we have just the members of the team. As Mr. Stout said, this was the original group that had met several times during last school year. So we had not only representatives from the school board and different roles throughout the school district, but we also had parents, students, and community members who were part of the process as well. In these main sections, I have hyperlinked, and I believe you have a copy of the presentation. If you click where it says comprehensive planning, it actually takes you to the plan itself. I think Mr. Stout's going to be able to hopefully click there. So again, the entire thing is an 84-page document, but you can see the whole thing, and it's linked in there for you. At the conclusion of today's presentation, we will be posting the plan on the school district website for public review, which is part of the process that we have to do throughout this. So originally, this was due to be submitted back in the spring, and then the state updated the timelines. It's now due at the end of October. So every 3 years, school districts need to submit for approval the professional education plan, along with the comprehensive plan and the induction plan. So there are several different pieces to the process. There's a profile where we basically give some background on our school district, some demographic information on Boyertown, some of our core foundations, some assurances that we provide to the state of things that will be included. We had to conduct a needs assessment, which was part of the process. And then we worked as a team with the members that you saw previously on some action planning, and then the plan submission itself. This is a continuous process. And so the goal of it is to provide increased student performance and quality results for all of the students in our school district. And so we worked diligently on that process. I have here the timeline that we followed. You can see it skips from January to August and September because, again, there was an update to that state timeline that happened as we were kind of midway through that process. So right now we're at the point where we're reviewing the plan contents. We will then post the plan for 28-day public review. And then we will bring this back to you in October for your vote at a board meeting, and then assuming that it gets approved, we would then submit to the Future Ready Comprehensive Planning Portal, which is where we need to upload that document, and Mrs. Torshall will sign off on that by the end of October. One of the first things that we had to do when we worked together on this last year was determining the educational values that was going to be a part of this. So we had to create some value statements with some guiding principles that would direct the work that we were doing. It guided our decision makings and created a framework for us that we can share with everyone throughout the school district and community. This may look mostly familiar to you. We had a very similar looking document with our last comprehensive plan. Mrs. Moyer worked on an updated format for this. The content has remained the same. As we worked this past year, our vision, mission, and goals remained very similar, but she updated the appearance of it, the template, so that it would align with the other graphics that we have throughout the school district. The work that we did on the plan aligned with both the portrait of a graduate as well as our instructional model. There's a link here on the bottom of this slide that will take you to the information on the portrait of a Boyertown Area School District graduate, which we had worked on over the past few school years. And you can see with the graphic that we have here that it's that combination of real world knowledge, social emotional awareness, and composition of character that work together for our students to make an impact in our community and around the world. Our committees then dug into the work kind of by stakeholder groups initially. So we analyzed some data, did some action planning. This graphic here was something that we worked on when we were together last year with all of the representatives that you saw on the earlier slide. So each of the groups thought about their role and their responsibilities as a member of our school community and jotted down some of their notes and ideas on the importance that their role plays in helping all of our students have a successful future. And these comments that are on these notes here went directly into some of the values section in our comprehensive plan document. We then took that information and analyzed strengths and challenges to set some goals. So we looked in depth at the Future Ready Index. Now, keep in mind, the information that we were looking at was from the 21-22 school year. We still currently do not have access to the updated Future Ready Index for the 22-23 school year. We have gotten some initial information, just attendance data, graduation rates, that sort of thing. But in terms of PSSA and Keystone data from last school year, we don't have that. The state hasn't shared, well, we have the data for our students, but it's not on Future Ready Index yet. The state hasn't shared that out yet. So we were working with the 21-22 school year data when we worked on this piece to do some of our goal setting. As you look at that site, it's broken down into different sections. We looked at things such as achievement and growth for our students in English language arts, math, and science, which are the areas that the state shares data and our students are assessed on. We looked at measures of attendance. There's data for English language learners if your school district has enough students to provide information in that category. And then grade 3 English language arts and grade 7 math are areas that are looked at in greater detail in determining these scores for our buildings. And then college and career readiness, we are required to have our students participate in college career readiness activities, and we have to document those artifacts and share those with the state as well. And so they track our students' participation in things like that, as well as our graduation rate and industry-based learning that some of our students participate in. We then reconfigured our groups from stakeholder groups and really dug into the data, looking at it from an elementary and a secondary lens, and dug into those different content areas more specifically to determine our areas of greatest strengths and needs. And then we used that information to really analyze and set some goals. So each of the teams reviewed the data based on their group, looking specifically for those strengths and challenges, how it related to learning, how it related to future growth and student needs, and then used it to help develop the plan. The priorities we found were three key things. The first priority was to prioritize overall growth for our elementary and middle schools in the area of English language arts. Our data showed us that that was an area where our students would benefit from making some gains and strengthening their skills. So one of the pieces of that is a focus on research-based high-yield instructional strategies and continuing to analyze data for our students to ensure that they are achieving as well as growing in English language arts. Structured literacy competencies is one of the areas that the state has actually mandated that we prioritize in our professional learning. You may recall that we talked to you about the UFly program that the elementary school is going to be using at one of our recent meetings, and that falls into this area as well. The second priority that we identified is a need to help support our students with disabilities, particularly our students with those individualized education programs, to make sure that they are growing in English language arts and math. So they were the group that appeared to be most negatively impacted by the pandemic when we looked at some of our data over the past few years. And so we need to review staffing, programming, our instructional practices, the way that we're assessing our students, and prioritize some of those pieces during our professional learning sessions. The district was also monitored last year by the state in special education, so any takeaways or corrective actions that would be noted in that monitoring would also be implemented as a piece of this. And then the third priority that we identified was a system for continuous improvement and organizational coherence. So this is where we really looked at our curriculum and really broke it into two areas: horizontal and vertical alignment of our curriculum. This first year, we're really looking at the horizontal alignment piece. And what that really means is, as we're looking across a grade level, we want to make sure that a student in one classroom is finishing up their school year having learned, for the most part, the same things that students in another classroom would have learned. Not to say that there's not room for originality and creativity from our teachers. There definitely is room for that. And we also want our teachers to differentiate based on the needs of the individual students in their classrooms to make sure that they're meeting the needs of all learners. But really making sure that standards are being addressed in the lessons that we're teaching and that we have that horizontal alignment from one classroom to the next in the same building and across buildings. And then the other piece of that is vertical alignment, which would be the next piece that we would work on over the next few years. And that is also ensuring that as a student moves from one grade level to the next, that they are prepared for that next step in their learning, and that our courses are well aligned to help our students make that successful transition from one class to the next. Again, we would be aligning all of that work with Portrait of a Graduate as well as the instructional model. And while we want to do this across, all subjects and grade levels, one key priority would be the area of the sciences, because the state has established some new science standards that will be going into effect in the 2025 school year. And we are currently working with our science teachers to help them understand those and rework the curriculum to meet those requirements from the state. So once we had determined those priority areas, we had to create goals to go with them. So that horizontal and vertical alignment piece translated to a goal. So by the end of year 3, because again, this is a 3-year comprehensive plan, all courses will have completed consistent and aligned curriculum and assessment documents. We'd be looking at the English language arts growth goal. So by the end of the 3rd year, we would be looking for 77% of our students in grades 3 through 8, which are the grade levels taking the PSSA, to score at the proficient level or higher. If we were to meet that goal, that would be an overall increase of 20% from our current data. And then the special education growth, again, we set a goal in that area, and our students with IEPs, as the name states, have individualized plans, but we want to work with all of our students with IEPs to increase their progress towards those grade level proficiency benchmarks. And then the last goal that's listed here is structured literacy professional learning. Again, this is a requirement from the state, but also something that is best practices to help our students be successful in the classroom and beyond. So making sure that we're providing professional learning for our teachers with those high yield instructional strategies so that our students can decode, understand, and analyze text. If you click on the box there for the professional learning plan, it will also take you to that piece of the plan. So that is linked there for you as well, as Mr. Stout is showing you. If we go back to the presentation and look at that professional learning plan in a little bit more detail, there are some requirements from the state for this. Again, we need to meet the needs of diverse learners in inclusive settings. We need to improve language and literacy acquisition, and we need to close the achievement gaps among students. As I mentioned before, the structured literacy competencies are a state requirement for us to be training our teachers in those areas. And then there is also the culturally relevant and sustaining education program framework guidelines. I know we have mentioned this before. We're currently awaiting updates on this. We did check in with the intermediate unit a few weeks ago because it is in the comprehensive plan and is a required section of the plan. There was some question as to whether the state was going to be changing some things in this area. At the present time, as of today, it is currently still Pennsylvania law and must be included, but we will be continuing to await any updates or any changes to that, and we'll certainly notify the board if we become aware of anything in that area. What that requires—
I need to interrupt here. I know I personally voiced my opposition to CRSE originally. So I can tell you right now, I'll never vote for this if CRSE is in there. That is, to me, is not helping our teachers, it's not helping our school districts, and it's pushing a agenda that I don't think we want here or in any school. So if that's in there, I can already tell you I'm a no.
I can share with you, if you see the last part down here. All right, well, let me just explain to you that basically what it states in there is that during the 22-23 school year, we are required to integrate the competencies for that in our professional development for our staff. It's not geared towards students, but it's professional development for staff, and then it must be included in our new teacher induction and mentoring
Yes,
in the 23-20.
we're going to grade our teachers on how they indoctrinate students. It's exactly what it says, if you read it. And I read it. So, like I said, again, with that in there, and us, I don't care if we're awaiting updates, it's non-educational, and it does nothing to help the students or the teachers, because it forces them to do something they may or may not want to do.
And Mr. Brophy, we understand the position that a few of the board members have with respect to this. However, this is a required piece of this comprehensive plan, and if we don't have it in there, that's going to be sent back to us for a revision to, add it at some point. So we're caught between, that rock and hard place in that we are required to have a comprehensive plan. I'm not sure what the consequences would be. However, we're trying to be compliant and know that that's not a focus that we want to spend a lot of time on with respect to our teachers. So respectfully.
It's important to me. Mr. Sultanic, how do we just railroad into this? We can't fight it, we can't argue with it. It's just do it or face consequences. So who's running the schools, the state or the boards?
This is an issue that we would have to discuss in an executive session.
Okay, I can take it.
Thank you. In terms of professional development steps, again, professional development is a required piece of the plan. So those Pennsylvania Science, Technology, and Engineering, Environmental Literacy, and Sustainability, which is known as the Pennsylvania STEELS standards, would be an area that we are working on collaboration with a team of our teachers and our instructional leaders for that curriculum work, and then supporting that implementation throughout our professional development steps as well. Educating professional staff in embedding impact skills aligned with the CASEL competencies, such as critical thinking, collaboration, problem solving, creativity, and effective communication, is the area that would align with the social emotional learning piece. And then establishing learning progressions that foster that horizontal and vertical curriculum alignment and the clear learning targets for, again, all of our content areas across grade levels and subject areas, and those high yield strategies, making sure that we have proper training for our staff in how to help our students in improving their literacy practices. The third part is the induction plan, and again, this is linked there for you. And this is what we have as our required piece for preparing our new teachers in the district. The good news with this part of the plan is that we are kind of already ahead of the game with this. We have a very rigorous induction plan for the teachers in our district to provide them with lots of support when they come to Boyertown. Not only do we want to get great people here on our team, but we want to keep them here. And so by making sure that we're providing effective support for them, we can help maintain our staff here in our district. So the state has updated the mandate for 23-24 that induction plans must be 2 years rather than 1. However, we already had a multiple year plan here in the district. So one piece of that is our new teacher academies, and we actually have 3 years of new teacher academies that we offer for our new staff. They already are our group that is with us this year for the first time. They participated in the year 1 academy for 4 days in August prior to the start of the school year, and really helped them build a foundation for their work in the school district. And then there's a year 2 academy where they grow their understanding and learn a little bit more. And then year 3 transitioning to tenure and helping them understand what some of the pieces are as they continue their work with us. We also have an induction program, and this would be for anyone who does not yet have their Instructional 2 certification, or if they have their Instructional 1, but they haven't completed an induction program in a school district in Pennsylvania. So this is in addition to the 3 new teacher academies. And so we have monthly meetings. The first one's coming up on October 4th this year. And there's a variety of different topics that we provide instruction to them to help them be successful and understand what they need to know to support them in their roles. And then in addition to that, we have mentors. As you know, the board often approves mentors for our new teachers to help provide that one-on-one support to them to get to know the district as well as their role in the classroom in general and the curriculum work that they are doing. We also have our instructional coaches that go in and observe in the classrooms and provide some coaching for the new teacher. Sometimes they'll even co-teach along with them to help them as they get comfortable in their classrooms, and then peer collaboration as well. Our teachers have collaborative planning times for both our veteran and our new teachers to work together. So we have a very thorough induction plan. The comprehensive plan also includes a communications plan, and that communications plan is twofold. There are 2 pieces to this. One is a part of the plan itself, and what are we working on as a district? Mrs. Moyer has been putting forth a lot of work to help to develop a new improved school district website, which we are anticipating at the present time that will roll out most likely in January of 2024, with some additional pieces to be added on a continuous basis. The public website design will include sharing Pennsylvania standards, curriculum summaries, which I'll show you in just a moment, and learning targets. And then much like we had something previously for our teachers, it was called SharePoint. There will be an internal website designed for our professional staff where they'll have a login that will give them access to a warehouse of instructional resources, professional learning tools, and schedules for professional development and so on. That will be very beneficial to our teachers in order to have one place to go to find what they need, and will help with that horizontal and vertical alignment by making sure that our teachers have access to consistent materials to be able to utilize in their classrooms. And then the second piece of the communications plan is how we are communicating the comprehensive plan itself. So the first part is this school board presentation, and then the public notification of the plan review, public notification of the plan approval, once it is hopefully approved by the school board. And then, as Mrs. Moyer has done previously, curriculum and professional learning updates that are shared through her newsletters. And we will also be doing work in our instructional leadership and our principal meetings and our leadership team meetings to make sure that our building leaders and our district leaders are able to help support our school community in following the plan. This is just an example of the curriculum summaries. I'm not going to go into it with great depth, but our teachers worked on this last year in some of their professional learning days, and this will be available to the public on the new website and will give our stakeholders an overview of what each of our classes is about and what they are teaching in these courses and how it aligns to the state standards. So next steps would be that the Office of Teaching and Learning and district leadership have now taken the input from the stakeholders that met last year. We've entered it into the action planning template of the comprehensive plan. We've shared it with you this evening, and you, as well as the community, will be able to provide feedback, and we have that 28-day public review period. And then once that review period is done, we would be looking to bring it back to you at the October 24th meeting for a final vote. And then if it is approved, it would be uploaded with an affirmation statement document from that meeting to the website where we need to share it on October 30th. One interesting piece that we asked about is that even though the state postponed the timeline of when this needs to be turned in and when it needs to be approved and submitted, it does cover the full 3-year span of the 23-24, 24-25, and 25-26 school year. So it is retroactive back to July 1st. And that is the comprehensive plan overview. Yes.
Okay, I know we skimmed a little bit about it, but the last page on the Boyertown Area School Office of Teaching and Learning course curriculum summary, is the teacher's name going to be on that? Or is it just going to be what the...
This document here?
Yeah. Is this going to be for each individual teacher?
No, it's not for each individual teacher. So that's where that horizontal alignment piece comes in, that what's being taught in first grade English language arts, this summary overview would apply to all first grade classrooms across the district. And the teachers worked collaboratively last year on developing these. Okay?
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions?
I did have a question on the special education, the state monitoring that was done.
Mhm.
Is that, what were they doing? Like, what were they looking for when they were?
Mrs. Bartman would have to speak more specifically to that, but the state monitors different programs throughout the district on kind of a rotating cycle, and so it was the special education department's turn last year, and so they're looking at the program. I know they typically, they typically randomly pull a couple students from across the district. They look at their paperwork in detail to make sure that we're, everything's in order and we're following proper procedures. Mm-hmm.
My second question was, do we ever audit our IEP students as they get into your higher grades, like high school, and decide whether that IEP can now be pulled because...
IEPs are evaluated every year on a yearly basis, and the IEP team meets to discuss the needs of the student. And if the student is continuing to show need, then that IEP would stay in place. There's not very many times that a student is exited from having an individual education plan. There are times where students are exited from receiving services like speech and language, occupational therapy, physical therapy, that they may have no longer be in need of those related services. But it's not very often that students do move on beyond having the supports of an IEP. The supports can change. They may not be pulled out as often. They may be being supported within the general education classroom. So there's a large variety, but it's based upon where they are performing on testing, math, reading, etc. We get their levels, and if there's a need that is determined, then we do address that need continued.
Okay, and then I just have one other question. With the Pennsylvania standards, I know that is school code law, it's law, okay? We have these PA standards.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't have to do this now, maybe just think about that. Can you show me where in the PA standards, in the school code law, it says that we have to follow CASEL? The social emotional learning, we follow that, because when I read CASEL, just so everyone knows, and I know we have different views on CASEL, and some of mine are good. I think it's appropriate in certain places. but they have stated on their website that teachers are encouraged to use this in all of their curriculum in every subject, and I'm thinking, wow, that teacher must be going a little crazy trying to teach math and including social. So I know that's like an extreme, but I'm trying to find where's the balance here on academics and social emotional learning, and does the state require us to use CASEL? Does the state require us to be doing social emotional learning, or is this coming into play because we chose a certain curriculum to follow?
So I don't believe CASEL itself is specifically required. There are some pieces that are required. For example, trauma-informed practices is a state mandate that all of our staff need to receive at least 1 hour a year on trauma-informed practices training. And a lot of that work does align closely with social emotional learning in terms of supporting our students with many of the things that they have experienced in their life. Which certainly impacts them in the day-to-day in schools as well. The social emotional learning is not to be like a standalone class. It really is embedded in what we do. If you look at it, it's that self-regulation, the self-management, as well as social development and helping people with how to interact with each other. And that, you know, is part of what we do in all aspects of our lives, and it really plays a role in all aspects of our students' lives as well, in terms of helping them to become more resilient students, helping them to be better goal setters, helping them to have better self-control, as well as interact respectfully with those around them and work together and collaborate with others.
So it's like a moment. If something comes up in the class, and it's like.
Yeah, a lot of times it is a teachable moment. Mm-hmm.
So there's a curriculum that we use on this then. But the teachers are going to be trained, and I'm going to bring up what Mr. Ropi brought up on this CRSE stuff, and a lot of that goes back to that social emotional learning, and CASEL sometimes lines up with that, with some of those things. So it is a concern, and we don't need to go down that path right now. But
Okay. Thank you. Mrs. Hogan?
Yeah, I just wanted to thank you for the presentation and Mr. Stout and the entire team. I know there was a lot of work put into it. It's been developed over almost a year. It's been quite a while. And there was a lot of collaboration and meetings in which I also participated as a board member and a parent. So I appreciate all the hard work. And the other thing I wanted to mention is, because I think that often this gets confused when we talk about social emotional learning in like a math classroom. If that could be something as simple, and correct me if I'm wrong, as a teacher encouraging a child not to give up, like building resilience, like you had said, teaching kindness, teaching children how to interact socially and within the classroom. Those are all the core basics of social emotional learning. So it's really about how to, and which are very important as we grow and move into the professional world, that we can collaborate and work together. So that's all. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you. All right. Thank you very much.
Just really quick, I wanted to make sure you were all aware that next to your place tonight, you have the 84-page document, a hard copy of it, because I know that's a lot easier to look at than possibly look at electronically. And maybe one of your board members asked for a cheat sheet on the acronyms that go along with it, so we decided to add the cheat sheet for all of you, so all of the acronyms go hand in hand with your understanding.
And I thank you.
I didn't want to disclose the board member, but thank you. It was a great idea.
Thank you.
Next, that brings me to a few policies that I need to discuss this evening. They were shared with you in our weekly newsletter, and they are relatively simple and are the result of two monitorings that had taken place this past year. The first policy is policy 251, which is students experiencing homelessness, foster care, and other educational instability. The only revision to this policy affects the students with disabilities section, and there is a bold print that states that in accordance with applicable law, regulations, board policy, administrative regulations, and state guidance. That information needed to be updated and included with this policy with respect to the monitoring so that we can get a check mark for having that policy and having it current. Any questions on policy 251? I am going to, I do have this listed for first reading, so if you would like to discuss this policy in any way. It's pretty straightforward. Thank you. Yeah. And then the next policy is policy 827, conflict of interest. This is not a brand new policy. This policy has not been updated through our works with board docs since 2016, but inadvertently, there was some language that was left out of the policy that was adopted by the school board in 2016, and per the monitoring that was completed through federal programs, they pointed out language that we needed to make sure that we had included. And that is that we add the words of conflicts of interest and a bold paragraph that specifically says that the superintendent or designee shall report in writing to the federal awarding agency or pass-through entity any potential conflict of interest related to a federal award in accordance with the federal awarding agency policy. So that is the only thing that is being added outside of under one of the sections where it says reporting. We are also adding the words conflict of interest. Any questions on conflict of interest, policy 827? This too will be set up for first reading this evening. Wonderful. That completes my part of the, oh, sorry, Mrs. Nunn.
Not on either of these, but I did tell you once before about a policy that needed to be changed because of the redistricting. Have we done that?
I did not, and I will need you to give me a gentle reminder again as to which policy you were referencing so that I can put that on my list, okay?
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
Alicia Terizzi.
Hello, my name is Alicia Terizzi, and I have been a teacher in Boyertown since the fall. Can't hear me? Thank you. My name is Alicia Terizzi. I have been a teacher in Boyertown since the fall of 1997. I was the field hockey coach back in the 80s, and I stopped coaching when I had my children, who are now grown. I am back as the head hockey coach at the high school. I want to thank the board members because you guys volunteer your time and are obviously committed to the students and stakeholders of the Boyertown Area School District. We appreciate you giving your time to make the school district the best that it can be. The idea of Boyertown getting a turf field has come up in the past and has always been voted down for one reason or another. Back in the day, 20 years ago, it could be argued that turf was a novelty. And back then it was. O&J was the first PAC team to get turf. They have 3 turf fields, which are constantly used by their high school, middle school, and community. Fast forward to 5 years ago, at that time, many more PAC schools had turf. But it could still be argued that not everybody did. Now, in the PAC, this is what we have. O&J, 3 turf fields. Methacton, 2 turf fields. PV, 2 turf fields. Springford, 1 turf field with hopefully 2 more in the works. Upper Perk, tiny little district, 2 turf fields. Phoenixville, small little school district, 2 turf fields. Upper Marion, 4 turf fields. Pottsgrove, 1 turf field. Pottstown, they're getting turf right now. That leaves Boyertown as the only public school in the pack without a turf. Now, I know what you're going to say. We can't compare ourselves to those schools because they're in Montgomery County and those schools are way more wealthy than Boyertown. So, let's look at Berks County. Berks County. Twin Valley, Wilson, Ole, Hamburg, Schuylkill Valley, Governor Mifflin, Daniel Boone, Exeter, Tulpehocken, Fleetwood, Muhlenberg, Wyomissing, and Reading all have turf. Many of these schools are a fraction of our size, and their school boards have been able to make it happen. The only schools in the Berks League that don't have turf are Kutztown and Brandywine. Brandywine is in the process of getting one right now. What baffles me is that all of these schools and school boards have figured out a way to make turf happen in their district. Yet it seems to me that some of us act like we are asking for something that is unrealistic and unreasonable. I am continually amazed that Boyertown, a 6A school district, in the year 2023, does not have a turf field. Last meeting, it was brought up that renting the turf is out. Well, that just is not true. The turf obviously can be rented. The youth soccer program spoke at the last board meeting and said that they would be happy to give the money that they give every year to outside organizations to Boyertown if that was an option. The youth field hockey program would be in the same boat if that was available. Teams in the district could run camps, tournaments, the band program could run cavalcades and clinics, all of which would bring money into Boyertown. It was also brought up at the last meeting that we would have to train someone to take care of the turf. I was wondering what that meant, because the turf doesn't grow. The lines are on the turf. Now, once in a while, you need to maintain the turf by using a machine to rake the turf beads out, but that's not something that happens weekly. I'm sure you guys realize that right now, our grounds crew is very short-staffed. Our grass is not mowed the way it should be, and it is difficult to get our fields lined. That would be something that would also be alleviated if we had turf that did not need to be maintained every day of the week. It was also brought up at the last meeting that people just cannot afford this. But I will counter with the fact that if your school district is a desirable district, the values in the school district will skyrocket, and resale values will reflect that. To be honest, it is very short-sighted to not provide facilities that make Boyertown comparable to surrounding districts. What seems like a fiscally responsible thing to do is actually hurting home values. Over the last 3 seasons, including this one, we, the field hockey coaches, have gone above and beyond to help our girls level the playing field. We have raised money to rent turf. We've had all of our games away, and I've even learned how to drive the school bus due to the bus driving shortage to keep our kids and coaches in class where they need to be. What makes me very nervous is, look at me, I'm old, okay? When I retire, what's gonna happen? Is somebody gonna be as crazy as I am to put in all that time to provide what our students need? I don't know. So that's one thing that makes me very nervous. All right, how is it fair also that the Boyertown field hockey team has to pay $100 for the fee to play athletics, and then we also have to pay $20 down at 422 Sports? We need to come.
Time's up for speaking.
Okay. Thank you.
Hello, good evening, everybody. My name is Kim Evans. I am a Boyertown alumni. I played field hockey and softball for Boyertown. I currently run and coach a youth field hockey program. That field hockey program feeds into our middle school and high school programs. And I just wanted to come and tell you what benefit our program would get if Boyertown had turf. We currently have small registration. We've lost a lot of players to outside organizations because they can play on surfaces where they increase their skill and increase, competitive edge to be able to compete at higher levels. So our program numbers are down. So having turf at Boyertown may bring our program back higher, keep our Boyertown kids in Boyertown and playing for Boyertown. I currently, within the last 5 years, transitioned to having practices on turf. And in order to practice on turf, we have to pay private facilities for our turf. This year, I am spending approximately $6,000 for 4 practices a week. And so in order to have that and in order to have a program, I do have to fundraise to be able to get that into our program. That money could be transitioned into the Boyertown School District if we were to have turf that we could keep it here in Boyertown instead of putting it outside into our neighboring communities. Additionally, we could potentially have play days. We used to host play days at East, but the field just, while we're playing on grass, it's not as great of a competitive, and we don't have the space for a large play day to be able to bring a significant income in. So having facility at the high school would allow us to be able to have a potentially larger play day, income to Boyertown School District, and income to keep our kids in our program here at Boyertown. Additionally, because our program numbers are low, we actually don't have enough kids to feed into our middle school and high school programs right now. We actually don't filter enough kids into, I believe West only had 8 kids come out, and they had to get kids who never played field hockey into the program because they're not here and they're not seeing this excitement that we can have here in Boyertown. So I really like to really just pass my opinion on that, the things that I think having a turf at our district would benefit our program and our community, and also benefit the school district because we'd be able to supply some income into the district. So thank you very much for your time, and I look forward to hear what the decision on this will be in the future. Thank you.
Is that the end of public comment? One. So since we did not use the full 30 minutes, as we've done in the past, can we offer Ms. Terizzi time to finish her comment?
She signed up in part 2.
Oh, okay. All right, thank you.
Looking for the approval minutes for August 22nd, 2023 Board of School Directors meeting minutes.
Hogan moves.
I'll second.
Mr. Updegrove,
Yes.
Mr. Brophy,
Yes.
Ms. Nyman,
Yes.
Ms. Deeroff,
Yes.
Mrs. Scott,
Yes.
Ms. Hogan,
Yes.
Mr. Zawada,
Yes.
Mr. Hemingway,
Yes.
Mr. Penarello.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Next, under the superintendent's consent agenda, we have to put forward before the school board a motion for the school board to approve the awards of the spring sports bids for the 23-24 school year.
Hogan motions.
You're seconds.
Mr. Updegrove,
Yes.
Mr. Brophy,
Yes.
Ms. Nyman,
Yeah.
Ms. Deeroff,
Yes.
Mrs. Scott,
Yes.
Ms. Hogan,
Yes.
Mr. Zawada, Mr. Hemingway,
Yes.
Mr. Penarello.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Under the superintendent's itemized agenda, we have the first reading of policy 251, students experiencing homelessness, foster care, and other education instability. I am looking for a motion from the school board, to approve policy 251 for first reading for students experiencing homelessness, foster care, and other educational instability. and to move them forward to the September 26, 2023 Board of School Directors meeting for second reading and approval. Mr. Updegrove and Mr. Panarello? Mr. Updegrove first? And then Mr. Panarello?
Mr. Updegrove,
Yes.
Mr. Brophy,
Yes.
Ms. Nyman,
Yes.
Ms. Deeroff,
Yes.
Mrs. Scott,
Yes.
Ms. Hogan,
Yes.
Mr. Zawada. Yes. Mr. Hemingway,
Yes.
Mr. Panarello.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Next, looking for the Board of School Directors to approve policy 827, conflict of interest for first reading, and move this forward to the September 26, 2023 Board of School Directors meeting for second reading and approval.
Brophy motions.
Mr. Updegrove,
Yes.
Mr. Brophy,
Yes.
Ms. Nyman,
Yes.
Ms. Deeroff,
Yes.
Mrs. Scott,
Yes.
Ms. Hogan,
Yes.
Mr. Zawada. Yes. Mr. Hemingway,
Yes.
Mr. Panarello.
Yes.
Motion carries.
And lastly, looking for a motion for the Board of School Directors to approve the personnel agenda items as presented. Mr. Updegrove? Second,
Mr. Updegrove,
Yes.
Mr. Brophy,
Yes.
Ms. Nyman,
Yes.
Ms. Deeroff,
Yes.
Mrs. Scott,
Yes.
Ms. Hogan,
Yes.
Mr. Zawada. Yes. Mr. Hemingway,
Yes.
Mr. Panarello.
Yes.
Motion carries.
We're up to public comment period number 2. And Alicia Terizzi, you're back up.
I'm going to finish up with the turf thing, but before I do that, I literally would wholeheartedly welcome any of you to come into my classroom and see what happens on a daily in our district. I've been around a really long time, and I'm being dead serious. Like, I would welcome you to come in to see what happens in a school on a daily, right? So I'm adding that on to there. All right, we need to come up with a plan to make this work. Are there people in the community that are willing to donate time, money, and expertise? Can we create a committee to research grants and other funding options? So many things to think about, but saying Boyertown can't do this is just not acceptable. It is the year 2023, and it is time that we bring our facilities up to par with not only the rest of the pack, the rest of the county, the rest of the state, but the nation. Let's work together to make this happen for the students in our community. Thank you.
Donnie Savage.
Hi, thank you for allowing me to speak tonight. I just wanted to start off with the question about the turf field. So there was the idea of doing a feasibility study at no cost by KCBA, but I didn't hear a motion. So is the board moving forward with that feasibility study, and what is the timing of that? You don't have to answer that now, but you may. But I did want to comment on the idea of turf fields and this board. School board budgeting is very hard, as you all know. And a lot of that is due to state issues and the diminishing share that the state contributes to our budgets, putting more burden on our local taxpayers, and also the state continuing to add mandates. We heard that word a lot tonight, I noticed. I don't think that this board has placed itself in any position to seriously consider turf fields. This year, you spent nearly 20% of your savings account or your fund balance for recurring expenses. And there probably are some really innovative solutions, and innovative solutions take communication, conversation among all of you, together with administration, engaging our community. And it takes more than spending an hour every year talking about your $139 million budget. It's just not going to happen that way. So I guess my message to, and you've all heard that from me many times before, so I'm just repeating myself, I'm sorry. But my message to the community is, you do have a voice. It's great that people came here to talk. Your voice is really at elections, and November 7th is an election. And think about electing people who really understand what public education today is about. Thank you.
Just to ask the question, the administration doesn't need our okay to go forward with a feasibility study since you are not looking for any dollars. That's correct?
That is my understanding, that we were not given direction that we could not go forward. So we will be moving forward with the feasibility study that was offered at no charge.
So any board member would understand that, correct?
I believe so.
Okay.
I believe that that was the way that it was
Past and
communicated, and
present.
everyone was,
Past and present.
okay.
Board comment period.
I want to go back a few months. At that time, there was a lot of angst around the school calendar as far as moving to a start date after Labor Day. At that time, I was against that, and for a couple of reasons which I was real clear about. One was it was going to be detrimental to our busing. We'd have to charge more for that. We'd have to pay more for that on our contract, and it's going to be detrimental to our BCTC students. The reason for that is because it was brought forward so late. We're now in a new school year. I do believe that it could be looked into at this time because there's plenty of time to do it. Contracts could be looked at. And I do believe we have a BCTC representative that could work with the BCTC and Boyertown to look at, see if the consortium could conceivably work with their groups and move their start date back or accommodate something for us or anybody that wants to move back beyond that date. So we could actually go to a start date that is after Labor Day. Also, we could look at there'd be enough time to look at our construction contracts and also our construction schedules, also to accommodate that movement. So I would like to request that the administration looks at that. I don't know, Mr. Sultana, could I make that a motion that they do that and get back to the board by, say, January, the first meeting of January with the recommendation? Or do I have to wait for another meeting and petition the board?
Right now, because that was not on the agenda, the only way to get that as an agenda item, you would need to get the board to agree with you to make it an agenda issue, and that this is an emergent matter, which was the reason that.
No, I could basically, if I could request that it gets put on a very close future agenda, so we can discuss it and have the administration actually look into it, and let's see what we can do move forward.
You can certainly make any kind of informal request, and ultimately the superintendent.
Can I make it to the board president to make sure it gets on the next agenda?
Yeah, it was already informally expressed, Ms. Dorsey said she was going to do that already.
Okay, well, let's go forward with that, and so we can put this area to bed. A lot of schools are moving toward, the state's actually moving toward that. So now we have plenty of time, and it's not going to be a knee-jerk reaction. We'll be able to actually do it in a structured manner and make sure that we can dot all our T's and do it correctly. So yes, I would like to do that. When do you think it would go on the agenda?
It was already, Ms. Dorsey already aware of it, it's already been done.
I don't feel like it needs to be on an agenda. I have already spoken with board leadership and letting them know that I was looking into the calendar start date for the 24-25 school year, that I've had conversation with our VOTEC. I can't tell you that there will be a large amount of school districts that will be starting after Labor Day,
I
but
think he misspoke there. I don't think he meant that. I think he meant just those dates that you were saying, not, you didn't mean after Labor Day. No. Yeah, just the dates that we, yeah.
you do or don't want to see,
Talking about moving after Labor Day.
It was only that 1 week period. It was literally from like the what, the
Right.
22nd to 28th or something.
Correct.
Nobody started in
Right,
September.
well, there's a lot of push toward after Labor Day, so that's why I'd like to have it looked into to see what can actually be done and what we should do and what actually fits the school district. So, the date, I don't know what the date is. I'm just going by that the angst has been post-Labor Day. So let's answer that, and if it can't be done, what dates close to Labor Day are we talking about?
I will certainly communicate with the remainder of the superintendents in the county to see what their start dates would be anticipated for, and report back to the school district. And typically what the VOTEC will do is they will then align their calendar closest to the majority of the school districts and when they were planning to start.
Yeah, and that's the big piece is the BCTC and adverse effects to our students there. So that has to be one of the main things addressed with this. We've been in BCTC for a while. We're a pretty big member over there. I think they can at least listen to us and try to work with us on that.
They definitely would be willing to work with us. I know that they do try to start a bit earlier because their NOCTI exams are given in February. They try to get their exams out of the way in advance of PSSA testing and Keystone testing that's being done. So that's one of the things that they try to work on.
That's okay as long as it's not going to adversely affect our students and we can do that. I believe they can. I believe we can do that, but I definitely want to make sure you have the proper time to look at all the consequences of moving the date that far. Like I say, especially we're doing a lot of construction with roofs and other issues out there. So they also need to be, those timelines need to be addressed also to make sure we don't have some penalties or some issues on those. So it's not just a, one issue thing. There are many things you individual as a administration have to look at to make that happen.
Just so that we all understand that our roofs are constantly being repaired throughout the school year, that it's not just a summer project, that there's roof construction going on currently.
Any type of maintenance that's going on has to go through the summer, or just so it's scheduled properly.
Jim, just to reference that, our school, the BCTC, there's 16 other schools that are talking to her about their starting time. It's not only us, because we have 250-some students going there, but the other schools have numbers higher than ours. We're number one, and there's 16 others. That's why they dictate type policy, start time.
Yeah, no, that was why I was saying I put the date out so far to get back to us, because I'm figuring I would believe that that's going to take a little bit of back and forth with those, consortium of schools to get to some sort of date that's agreeable to everyone. So yeah, it's not going to be just accommodating us. There is a consortium of schools there. So, and we don't run the BCTC.
Okay, I did have a chance to go and check, and it's policy 001, and it has to do with Region 1. Boyertown Borough is divided in two, and one of them's with Region 1, one's with Region 2, so we need to make that adjustment. Other than that, I think that's it. Thank you.
Can we just get back, I want to say something later, but I'll take my turn. I thought we were the biggest user of the BCI.
BCTC, we are the biggest user. We are.
But he just said we were.
No.
I think he's saying
Well, I
he
said,
added up.
we're number one, we're number one out of 16 other schools, okay? But we have more students going there than the other schools do. But, trying to get that changed, we have to change the mind of 15 other schools.
Right, we're the biggest supporters, so we should get some priority there. Thank you. Oh,
Whoever.
She wants to finish.
do you want me to? Okay. I would like the whole education community to keep Sandy Woods family in their prayers. Sandy passed away. Mrs. Wood passed away. She was a teacher in our school for 40 years. And she was a wonderful art teacher from 1960 to 2000. And that was a big loss when she retired, but I would appreciate people keeping her family in their prayers. That's number one. Number two, I'm still looking for our test scores to increase. And I was wondering how the committee is making out on the courses that we're offering, and if they're doing anything about AI. To me, that's very important. I'd like to know if it was discussed, what we're doing about it, how we're handling that, because it's got to come up. I was surprised that I didn't hear anything about the committee meeting or doing anything about it so far. It's been out there for a while, and we're living a dangerous game with that. So I don't know what the curriculum committee is doing on that. The other thing I wanted to ask is, I think we should have a dress code for the board. Some of us are getting a little bit lax, and I would like to see a dress code. That's my opinion. And the other thing, when we had meetings at the high school before, in the auditorium, the acoustics there are horrible. We had to like, what? And nobody could hear anything, and I thought we were assured we wouldn't have meetings there again, yet here we are, we're having another one there. So did the acoustics get fixed? Is it going to be a better meeting than we've had all of them in the past? I would appreciate knowing. Thank you.
The meeting schedule for high school is actually being held in the cafeteria.
How are the acoustics in there?
Mr. Stuckey, correct me if I'm wrong, but new equipment is coming and is being tested, and all of the programs.
What we're trying to do, Mrs. Yeroff, is last year we went into 6 different elementary schools. This year we were trying to get into schools that we hadn't been in last year. So, and we have recognized that this is aging equipment that we do use for our meetings. So I can only tell you that I believe that the acoustics would probably be comparable to this room, that it would be much smaller ceilings, but without testing it, I wouldn't be able to give you exact information.
I didn't know if it's in the cafeteria. If it was listed that way, I apologize.
I don't think it was listed that way.
So how would we know?
You wouldn't.
Thank you.
Okay, first of all, I want to thank for the presentation, basically for the education. I do feel that we're going to be involved with that because there are some serious questions that we as board members have. So hopefully when we can schedule another update for the group and invite all the other additional board members that want to attend. I know we've been having problems with AV, okay, and it's been a problem for a while. I've heard from people they can't understand us. I noticed last night at another school district, they have caption generated underneath their speaking, and I don't know if that's possible with what we have now, but it's automatically generated. And I mean, the old days somebody typed it in, but I think now with certain computers they can stay right on top of it, and that would help a lot of the parents and people that are watching the meeting outside, because that's been the biggest complaint. Why watch it? Because we can't understand it anyways. So just something to look into.
We are in the process since last May ordering new a whole microphone system that's going to be a travel system, and also a system that's going to stay in the boardroom that we're hoping really improves upon that practice. YouTube has its own feed, so I do not know if the current feed that we put into YouTube actually does do the visual piece of it. I can look into that. The hope was tonight was going to be the introduction to our new microphones, but they have not arrived, and I think they're supposed to arrive next week.
I do know the other school district was on YouTube, so
Yeah.
they were so there's something there that.
It could be, and it could be just a feature. We can talk to Mr. Cherkasky and see if
Okay.
there's a way that we can do that, because I don't, there might be a place that people need to actually turn it on and it might automatically do it. I'm not aware of that.
Okay.
Okay.
Food for thought.
Yep.
And finally, real quick, I want to thank Patty. She's proving herself tremendously, especially after this audit, that there was no questions. Everything went smoothly. I want to tell her how much we appreciate that compared to some of the issues we've had before. And there's some board members that we have in our prayers for their personal issues. I don't feel it's up to me to bring that up, but I just want to let them know that we're thinking of them.
So one of the things that I've been kind of working on and looking at, and I did talk to administration briefly on this, there's a lot of things to weigh in, but I really would like this is like the main function of the board is governance, and I would really like to see us collaborate on having a transparency in the classrooms, curriculum transparency. This is a big deal. It's a big thing to do, but in the world that we're in today, we need to be more transparent than we are. I mean, even the board can't sometimes get all the curriculum answers that we need to get. So my thought is, and then really the bottom line for this is to establish between the parent and the teacher and the students just an open ability for each one of them to see what's being planned, what the teacher's going to have, and to create I'm getting off center here, I'm sorry. So from my research and seeing why do some teachers do really well or students do really well and some not? And a lot of times it comes down to parent involvement. And the way to have parents involved, if they can see what their child is going to be taught each day in the classroom. Now, I know that's a heavy burden on teachers, but teachers have to lay out their lesson plans. They have to know what they're going to be teaching. They don't want to go into the classroom not prepared. Over the 2020 shutdown, teachers were using Google Classroom. It's already something that, from my understanding, they're still using. At the elementary level, there's a lot of communication with parents. The teachers are really good at that, but I think it starts to get a little skewed as we get into middle school and high school. So my recommendation to the board, and we have to sit, like I said, there's a lot of different things here. I don't want to burden teachers, but teachers have to be prepared for their class, so they need to know what they're going to teach. If they add something at the last minute, they just pop it up on Google Classroom really quickly. But it's something that teachers have there. They have to have it ready. Students need to know what's coming up, and parents should be able to see it just to kind of be part of that educational process as well. Some parents will use it, some parents may not, but it's there. But what it does is it creates that community effort to educate kids and not always have that, what's going on in my classroom? And I hear that all the time as a board member, but I'm not in the classroom. So my thought and my hope is that we can establish some type of curriculum transparency policy that teachers or that parents can see what is being taught in the classroom, and to put all the questions at ease. You know, that you're not going to get all these parents wanting to review curriculum and see all this because it's going to be there. But understanding, I have talked to administration, I have talked to teachers, I realize both sides of the aisle, it's a big thing. We have to all collaborate on this together, but I'm just putting it for the board that we do this because I think it's important. And plus, it keeps the teachers on task too with having their plans ready and not falling behind and things like that, and a little bit more accountable as to what's being taught. And we don't have that now. They used to, back in the day, they used to have lesson plans that had to go up to the office, but I know they felt, that kind of went to the side. But anyway, so in what I'm putting before the board and before the president is that the policy committee, along with whoever wants to, if we can establish a date to just kind of start digging into this. And I know I use my hands a lot, I'm sorry. That's it.
Yeah, I just have a short comment. A core component of public service is humility. The service that we provide here on the board is not about us. It is about the community. It is about the students. And when we snipe at each other or at members of the public, we do ourselves a disservice, and we do the community that we serve a disservice. So I really think that when we keep our focus on governance and student achievement, students succeed, and that's really where I would like to keep the focus as we move forward. And that's all. Thank you.
Yeah, getting back to the turf fields, I hear a lot of people come in to say about, the soccer team and the field hockey teams play better on the turf. But I think that would really have to go out to all the players, sports players, to see if they all agree if playing better on turf or grass would be beneficial to them. I don't hear them in here, and I guess they're going to have to come in and start voicing their opinion on if they would rather play on dirt or plastic. And it is a big expense. You're talking tens of thousands of dollars to put in a couple fields or 3 fields. The fields would have to be made up to play on each individual sports, or you want to put a field in that accommodates everybody. Those fields cost a lot more. Thank you.
Well, I appreciate everyone showing up and speaking up about the turf fields tonight. I look forward to that feasibility, to come back and see where we go with that. I hope the board is hearing what the public's saying. I'm going to cut it short. We have an executive session after this.
Our upcoming meetings are September 26th at the Ed Center, 7 o'clock p.m., October 10th, Committee of the Whole meeting, Colebrookdale Elementary School, and October 24th will be at the Ed Center at 7 o'clock p.m.